5 o'clock. A public hearing is being held in accordance with Section 67.100 revised statutes of Missouri, which requires each political subdivision to hold a public hearing after appropriate public notice prior to fixing its property tax rates for the fiscal year. Appropriate notice for the hearing is published in accordance with RSMO Section 610.020 as amended. We're now going to ask our CFO, Vice Chancellor for Finance, to come forward and give a presentation regarding the tax rate hearing.
Good evening. So the tax rate hearing, which is required by law, and we have to publish with the counties the tax rate by Tuesday, October 1st. So this is meant to be, follow in compliance with the law for that. So we did post the notice of public hearing at all 4 campuses of the college. It's on the college website, and we also took out 2 ads in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, which is similar to previous years. That it would be tonight. As I said before, we're required by law to fix the property tax rate by October 1st, which is what this is doing. And then I wanted to go back. On August 3rd, 2023, our maximum rate is $27.87 per $100 of assessed valuation. We were lower than that last year at 26.19 cents per 100. So there is about a 6% difference between those two numbers. That the number can go up, and you'll see that it did go up slightly for this year. You'll see that the currently assessed values are $40,284,000,000, and then for last year it was $40,423,000,000 for a slight decline of 0.35%. That's not 35%, it's 0.35. Again, for the Hancock Amendment, we were allowed to the lowest of actual growth or a consumer price. The consumer price index was 3.4, but it doesn't play as a factor in here because we were actually slightly lower. So that calculation results in our 2619 for 2023 going to 2628 for the tax year 2024, which is taxes due as of the end of the calendar year. It's slightly higher, which is a result of the lower assessed values by 0.3454. A little bit later, I'll talk about some of our concerns about property taxes, but we'll go through this. You can see here that the proposed rate is 0.34% higher, roughly matching the decline in the values. This slide, 3 of the political subdivisions have not reported their amounts, meaning St. Charles Metropolitan and East Central. That was as of about noon today. So you can see what the other tax rates are for the other community colleges in the state and how we compare. We're 5th lowest among the 12 community colleges, and it ranges from 46 cents to 18.71%. So So at 26.28, that's the fifth. Local tax has steadily grown as a result of the Proposition R, which we call transformed. It's gone up significantly starting in 2021. You see the big jump on the purple portion of that. The only thing I would tell you here is that tuition, which is blue, is at the gross value of tuition. It's not before Pell Grants and scholarships and all that type of thing that you'll see next month in the audited financial statements when we present them. You'll see here, we had an error in this earlier, so this was updated earlier, but basically the same revenue based on 2628 that we got with 2619. I will tell you that we did budget in May, and then in June when you approved the budget, $106,700,000 of property tax revenue. This represents the amount of property taxes that are allocated, that are done through the formula. So your house, your cars, all that type of stuff. But there's, surtax, those types of things that we will get on top. I don't see any issues with us hitting our budget for this year, for FY25, which is calendar year 24. It's always a little screwy. This slide's a little bit out of date, but I think it attempts to kind of identify what the dollar value of the 8 cents would be in today's dollars, which is 33 million. We don't do that. We don't budget that way. We fixed the amount at $30 million because that's what we needed in order to do the $450 million worth of transform projects. So you may not see this in the future. For a $100,000 house, the houses are real property are assessed at 19%. So $19,000, you divide that by 100 and multiply it times the tax rate, and you come up with $49.93 for this year, roughly 17 cents higher. And so if you go up to 300, it's 3 times that, or 51 cents higher. Commercial property is valued at 32 cents per at the assessed value versus the appraised value versus this at 19%. We're recommending a rate of 26.28 cents per hundred of assessed property valuation for tax year 2024, ending taxes due on December 31st of this year. And I believe that's the last slide. So I want to talk about two things, because I'm going to ask you to vote on the resolution, but there's two issues that could affect us in 2025, and I'll bring them both up. The first one is the St. Louis County, Franklin, and also Jefferson County, which we get taxes from, have all decided that the senior discount is going to apply for next year. So if you are 62 by December 31st of 2024 and you apply, you can have your property tax valuation frozen. So now the question is, you can, and there was no limit. There was originally, an idea that there would be a $500,000 limit or whatever. I don't see any limits, and they haven't indicated there are. But, from a practical standpoint, that probably isn't going to impact us that much. And the reason why it won't impact us that much is because housing has gone up pretty significantly. So I see any freezing that does occur probably be offset by increases in reevaluations as of January 1st. Even if it doesn't, we do have the difference between 26.28 cents, assuming you approve that tonight, and 27.87 to go back up on the rate. Obviously, our preference is not to go back up on the rate, but we do have a little bit of a buffer zone there. The second item is a concern over commercial properties, and in particular, commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is being hammered all across the country, and in particular here. You'll see that if you watch the vacancy rates, Class B, C is around 27% now. Class A is around 20%, and that's up a couple of percentage points. That if the vacancy rate goes up, the revenue goes down, which means that the value of the building, capped at whatever they use today, would be lower. And so the question ends up being, we have approximately $9 billion in the county, and in the 3 counties combined, of commercial real estate. And so the question ends up being, what happens to that? Will we see a problem? Now, I will tell you at 270 and Olive, there's a project that they said, the the Business Journal said was in imminent foreclosure on a $100 million loan. If that happens, just to use that as an example, that $100 million, the bank will turn around and try and move the property, and they would move it at less, which would mean that the dollar values go down. So we're looking at that. I think as long as the senior discount doesn't impact us that much, I think that we've got enough buffer in the rate. We've got around, we can go down about $2.2 billion, assuming you leave the residential alone. So approximately 24%, you could go down and still achieve the same result within the 2787. So, but we will know that in the spring of next year because it's a reassessment year, so that's going to be the key. I think one of the reasons why the valuations were a little bit lower this year, and they were for everybody, almost every school had their rates go up, small amount, but they went up, is because people were reassessed in 23, they got some pretty hefty tax bills, and they went out and they protested their taxes. So they've come back down a little bit. those are the two imminent things. I don't think that there's anything else out there other than the constant fear that the state legislature will affect personal property taxes, which is, for all intents and purposes, automobiles. And if they change the automobiles at the same time they're doing this, you could have quite a big impact. Every time Dr. Pittman and I go through those meetings and whatever, you think that it's, going to get there, and in the end, it doesn't. The problem was used cars, and if you go back to 2021, in particular, coming out right in the middle of COVID, you would see that used cars, because of chip manufacturers, were sky high. I know a car I had, I was being offered by the car dealership to sell it to them for more than I paid for it. And so those came into the property tax rates, and that immediately, legislature starts looking at it saying, oh, we need property tax reform. So that property tax reform, which we won't go into what it actually entails, but anytime somebody says reform, that means less, right? And so that's, we constantly have to fight that battle. But for right now, it's a good year, and good year last year, and hopefully going forward, we can cover these through our buffers that we have built into the system.
Thank you so much, Mark. First, are there any citizens wishing to address the board or our CFO with questions regarding our tax rate? This is their tax rate hearing, as it's the citizens who pay. Seeing none, we'll start with any trustees who have questions for Mark. Appreciate your summary of the real estate piece, because that's certainly one that, as we get reassessments next year, that's heavy on my mind of just thinking about how many vacancies there are and all of that. So I think we are fortunate that we have such a large taxing body that we're allowed to buffer a little bit differently than other places sometimes who don't have, school districts particularly, who are much smaller than we are, since we absorb so much. Any trustees, questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, if there can be a motion to adjourn our public tax rate hearing and reconvene our public meeting at this time.
So moved.
It's been moved by Graham.
Second.
Second by G. Any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning our public hearing and reconvening our public session, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions? Nays? Thank you so much. Back to our regular public meeting, we now have our resolution for the tax rate. At this time, there's a resolution that's been provided for the board to complete tax rate based on the presentation received to set the tax rate at 26.28 cents on each $100 of the properties herein described in the sections, and it goes through and outlines everything else in there for there. Is there a motion to approve the resolution as presented for the tax rate? It's been moved by G. Second by Robinson. We will do a roll call vote, please, for the record.
Mary Lupke? Yes. Doris Graham?
Yes.
Nicole Robinson?
Yes.
Rodney G?
Yes.
Kevin M. Martin?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much. With that, we're going to go into our enrollment report. I believe it's Kelly Burns who gets to do this one. Thank you so much, Mark. Kelly, you're up.
Hi, Kelly. Yay, Kelly. Good evening.
Good evening.
I have the great privilege of providing you with some information about our student body, and if you've known me a long time, you've probably heard me come up here with some bad news. And so it's the womp womp. But tonight,
It's good news.
we have good news.
Yes.
And so I'm really pleased to be here and celebrate our enrollment increase. I'm going to be brief.
Good.
So this is based on the census date enrollment, which is the end of the fourth week of the semester. We're going to look back a little bit on what the enrollment has changed, a bit of the demographics, and then I'll address any questions you have. Next. Oh, I have. Okay. I have some information from some of the other MCCA community colleges. Not all of them reported this. It's not time yet to turn in the census date enrollment to the state, but we did get some feedback. And very interestingly, with the exception of East Central and Three Rivers, all of those that reported information to me show that they have an increase. And St. Louis Community College is looking at a 7% increase, which is second in the state. What's more interesting than that is we're actually first in the increase in count of students. This represents 1,022 student increase from fall last year. That 13% of state fare, well, that's only 488 students. So we often have to think about the counts and how large we are and how much competition we have in the St. Louis region when we think about the increase in the percentage change of head count. This is looking across 4 fall semesters, and you can see this is the second year in a row that we've changed in enrollment. This year we're up 7%, which is a significant number. One slide that I didn't add in here that might be interesting to you, in the past years we've always taken students and sort of sorted them into their campuses to say, if you're enrolled in a majority number of credits, you might be a Forest Park student, you might be a Merrimack student. And this year, the highest enrollment is in our online campus. Our online campus is accounting for 29% of our enrollment in terms of student counts of the majority of courses they're enrolled in. They might be taking courses at some of our campuses in person or some hybrid courses, but the online campus is representing the largest number of individual students. Second would be Merrimack at 27, Forest Park 24, Flow Valley 16%, and Wildwood at 4%. The schools, new stuff, right? We're in the pathways model. We're looking at our students as they try to identify what their pathway is going to be, and we're calling them schools here. We don't have data on every student that's enrolled currently because we're trying to capture it as they apply to the institution, getting information about students' interests when they're already enrolled and they're not interested in taking our surveys or answering our calls sometimes. But we are starting to code that and starting to get that information in the system. So you'd still see that large group of general transfer studies. But as those students identify what they'd like to do post-graduation from St. Louis Community College, we'll be able to more sort them into their schools so that we can provide those wraparound services and integrated learning that's associated with their pathway. Entry status, always an interesting one. This is really looking at the status of our students and how they are enrolled with us, how they are coming to us, and we have a significant increase in our dual credit and dual enrollment student population. You can see that in the 23 to 24 change, 16% up in dual credit, 20% up in dual enrollment. Our transfer in, those where it says transfer, that's not transfer students we want to transfer out. Those are students that are coming to us from another institution. So transfer in student population is looking pretty good too. The one place we seem to still be struggling, and it gives me some concern in a fall term, is to see that our new first-time students are flat and that our continuing student population is only a 2% change in enrollment. Enrollment time status. This basically is telling you whether a student is enrolled in full-time, which is 12 or more credit hours, or part-time, under 12 credit hours. And what we like to see is more students engaging with us full-time. We know from our Complete College America and the research out there that the more credits a student can enroll in a given term, the better chance they're going to be progressing, the better chance they're going to stay engaged with us and complete faster. If they can complete faster, they're obviously feeling like they're accomplished and they're moving into the workforce and moving on to their institution. So we want to see that full-time enrollment increase, and we've seen it decrease. Thanks to my colleague back here, Hart Nelson, he said, well, doesn't that have to do with all that increase in dual credit and dual enrollment? And yeah, he was right. I didn't say that, Mark. I didn't say that, Mark. Okay, gender, something we see often when we have a really strong economy, low unemployment, high wages for entry-level positions, is the male population tends to decline. And that's what we're seeing here. We've got a really strong entry-level wages, low unemployment rate, and that affects our male students a lot more than it does our female students. This is just the proportion of our population, and you can see a small decline there. Race ethnicity, again, this chart is proportion of the enrollment, and you can see that there's a bit of a shift. We're seeing an increase in proportion of our Black African American students, our Hispanic students. Multiracial it seems to be very flat right now, but that is a pretty significant increase over years in the past, where we're now having an opportunity to say, blended families, a lot more people are identifying as multiracial. We do have something coming up in the next couple of years, but so a little spoiler alert, the National Center for Education Statistics is looking at changing those categories somewhat to more represent the population of the United States now and provide more ways that people can identify from different cultures and ethnicities. Stay tuned, it's years away. Just some select age groups here. You can slice the age groups anyway. We could put every age out there, but I think it's interesting to look at just sort of the distribution of the population of the institution and how it's changed from year to year. The good news here is that our very typical college-age student population has grown, and grown more in many cases than the overall population of the institution, which is very good news. We'd like to tap into the 40 and above. It's a bigger market. We're certainly seeing still that population decline coming out of high school, but it's a very hard market to tap because those are the second and third career. It's just harder to get into that market. So seeing the younger generations grow at the institution is good news for our enrollment. Degree-seeking status. Once again, we've got those dual credit and dual enrollment students who cannot declare that they are seeking a St. Louis Community College degree until they graduate from high school. So we do see a decrease in the number of students who are saying, I want a degree from St. Louis Community College, but that's kind of an artifact of the significant increase in our dual credit, dual enrollment student population. What we obviously want to strive for is once people say they want a degree here, we want to make sure that they finish here before they transfer or before they drop out. And that is all I had for you. I told you I'd be fast and furious, so I'd be happy to take your questions.
Well, thank you, Kelly, so much for reporting, and I appreciate us shifting to schools instead of campuses because online created some controversy of like who they get accounted for, and really it's about overall the college. So I appreciate us looking at the schools and self-reporting, and certainly some great numbers, and dual enrollment and dual credit. I don't think we're even fully tapped in yet to the opportunities there. And I think they'll continue to expand as more and more districts think of how to use this as a resource for their teacher shortage, but also that parents are looking for more opportunities for their kids to get involved in college earlier before graduating high school on a school district's dime for the most part. So I do really think that there's more opportunity, and excited to see the growth, but certainly I know we have more opportunity there to keep growing. And as we have new facilities, more school districts, I think, will want to tap into some of our partnerships as well as we look. So great news so far. Hopefully we can keep the trend going in terms of that, and I appreciate this report. We'll start with Trustee Lipke and go around this way if there's any questions or comments.
No, just congratulations. This is really good news. Very exciting, and we haven't heard that for a while, and I hope it just keeps going.
Absolutely. I'm just the reporter. A lot of people behind this.
All the ones that left early, most of them. They were a piece of it, yes. Thank you. Trustee Graham?
I'm just happy about the good news.
Perfect. Trustee G?
No, but just thank you and James for the hard work.
Trustee Robinson?
I just had one question. So I saw the 16 through 20. Those are mainly dual credit, dual enrollment. That number was really large. Is that number?
It's kind of a funny little slice, 16 to 20, right? So under 18 will typically be the high school students, 17 and under. So it's a little bit of an odd slice there. Also, the timing in which the age is captured can also affect, what's in there. But that is your typical right out of high school into college population and those dual credit students. Yes.
I do think the conversation shifted since I was on the board probably 6 years ago about community members just thinking about affordability of college. and community colleges are now starting to become back into the equation of affordability. I do think the whole debate about student loans out there have opened up some eyes about what does affordability look like, and people are starting to accept again some community colleges that maybe in more traditional families, they were thinking that you had to go to four-year school and get I'll use the one I just read about on Twitter, like to go get a job that you spend $200,000 for college that's going to make $30,000 a year doesn't make logical sense, and people are thinking differently again about you can't absorb all this debt to go in a job that's going to make $30,000. And certainly we still have those degrees at the community college, but also it's not that much, $200,000 to get that. So I think the conversation's shifting as people are feeling the pinch on all the fronts of cost of things. So thank you so much. Must say, I think it's a record for a tax rate hearing and a public meeting to be done before 5:30. My goal was 6, so we did quite well, you all. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Graham.
Second.
Second by G. Any questions, any oppositions? Seeing that, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Abstentions, nay.